All of this may make you want to drink. I mean, just say no, kids. I mean, especially if you're under 21, 19 in Canada. But no, seriously, an alcohol in my world is not just the drinking alcohol like beer and wine and stuff like that. An alcohol is actually a family of compounds. It's a whole class of compounds in organic chemistry. If you take those alkyl groups R and you put an OH on the end of them, that's what an alcohol is. And alcohols are really useful when it comes to organic chemistry, not just to lament the hard studying you have to do, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, it's pretty chill to name them. If you have the alkyl group, you take the YL off the name and you add anol. So you can see down there is an example of ethanol. Ethyl was the alkyl group, 2 carbons. Take the YL off for eth, then add anol, ethanol. And the formula CnH2n plus 2O. So notice that it's kind of like an alkane with an oxygen on the end of it. That oxygen is tetrahedral / bent sp3. So, and you can see it rotating down there. So you just add basically an oxygen between the other atoms to make it. Pretty chill. Ethanol is definitely the one that's consumed a lot in the United States with drinking, but there are actually a lot of synthetic reasons why ethanol is good for the lab. It's a really good solvent sometimes for making organic chemicals, so there's a lot of chemical uses for it in addition to all the questionable morality and social functions of ethanol in the real world. I digress. Propanol is 3 carbons with an OH off the end of it. But notice there in the name, there's a 1 in front of it. All right, 1 propanol. And when you get to chemistry, in organic chemistry, the alcohol group, the OH group, is actually really important for chemists. There's a lot of cool chemistry you can do with the OH. The alkanes and the cycloalkanes we saw are basically just good fuels. They don't do a lot of chemistry. But if you have an alcohol and OH on the end of it, there's some pretty cool kind of transformations you can enact. So 1 propanol would be the official name for the compound. You can see it rotating it. Now, there's a new type of naming in organic chemistry. Anyway, and instead of calling it 1 propanol, the new way of calling this is propan-1-ol. And when you get to really sophisticated chemical structures, there is a utility for calling it propan-1-ol versus 1 propanol. You'll see that as you go further into organic chemistry. But again, like all this stuff in Chem 222, I would be pleased if you put down 1 propanol or propan-1-ol. Either one is fine. The reason the 1 is there is because it's off the first carbon. So if you count right to left, OH is 1, 2, 3 right there. You can see then why this one is 1. If you count left to right, it looks like 3. Don't call it that. Smallest number is definitely key. But there's no reason why you couldn't put the OH off the second carbon. You would have 2 propanol or propan-2-ol. Either way is fine. And both of these are quite important. Now, the one on the right, 2 propanol, is also known as isopropanol. And isopropanol is used a lot as a cleaner. You can buy it at Fred Meyer's and stuff like that. So you see 2 propanol quite a bit. 1 propanol you can find too and stuff. But anyway, you can name them either way you want to and stuff. Isopropanol I'm not as excited by, but 2 propanol or propan-2-ol would be fine. Oh, organic chemistry. And again, notice the importance of those isomers. Another thing about alcohols is that sometimes they'll refer to primary, secondary, and tertiary. And this is a little bit weird. But anyway, it is something that does affect the reactivity of the alcohol. And if you see this in a future class, I want you to be aware of how this works and stuff just in case. Ethanol, CH3CH2OH, the OH is connected to this carbon right there. And if that carbon, which has the OH on it, is connected to one other carbon, i.e. one alkyl group, they call it a primary alcohol. So ethanol, as well as 1 propanol, are considered primary alcohols. A secondary alcohol is actually sometimes a little bit more reactive. And a secondary alcohol means that the carbon with the OH is connected to not just one alkyl group or one carbon, but two of them. So secondary means it has two carbons connected to the carbon with the OH on it. And again, 2-propanol or rubbing alcohol there, isopropyl alcohol, is an example of a secondary alcohol. And finally, you can have a tertiary alcohol, which just means that, again, the carbon with the OH is connected to not one, not two, but three carbons, three alkyl groups. And this can make a big difference when you get to organic chemistry. So it's something that I will probably be asking you about, but just in the back of your mind, remember that there are these primary, secondary, tertiary, and it's how many carbons are connected to the carbon with the OH, which is a little bit strange. Let's figure out the name of this molecule, all right? And so we're looking at it and we're saying, okay. So first of all, like before, let's figure out longest chain of carbon atoms, because it doesn't matter if it's an alcohol or a cycloalkane or anything like that. You've got to figure out the longest chain. So definitely there are 4 carbons right there. That's going to be the longest chain. That would be butane. However, as you probably saw right away, this is not an alkane. This has an OH group, an alcohol. So it's going to be some type of butanol or butan something all right, which is cool. So butanol is the name. But that OH, you don't have to have on that carbon. You could move that OH around. So you've got to figure out the smallest number. And again, while you're learning, I recommend you count in both directions. So people usually start left to right. First carbon, second, third, fourth. So it kind of looks like it could be 3-butanol or butan-3-ol, answer D. However, count the other way too. So in that case, if you went right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could also call this compound 2-butanol or butan-2-ol. And you guessed it, longest chain, smallest number, always the winner. Butan-2-ol or butanol, 2-butanol would be the best name for this compound. All right, this is technically a secondary alcohol. The carbon with the OH is connected to 2 other carbons with 1 hydrogen. That makes it a secondary. That's not as important. If you can see the name, longest chain, and then smallest number, I consider it a victory. And again, if you called this 2-butanol, I would be very happy with that. That's not a problem at all. A glycol is a diol. It's an alcohol with 2 OH groups on it. And these are actually somewhat common. So ethylene glycol and propylene glycol are sometimes used as a type of an antifreeze in a car and stuff like that. They are both examples of diols. Ethylene glycol is the unofficial name for what's an ethane with OHs off both the first and the second carbons. So ethane 1,2-diol would be the official name of this compound, but ethylene glycol is what almost everybody calls it. Propylene glycol is a propane, propane, all right, and the alcohols are off the first and second carbons, so it would be propane 1,2-diol. These are just things that you might run into. This is just like 2 alcohols on the same compound instead of just 1 OH like we just went through. And yes, you can have a triol. This is an example of a 3-carbon system where there's an OH off the first, second, and third compounds. So the official name here would be propane 1,2,3-triol. Oh my goodness, but nobody calls it that except nerdy chemists like me. Glycerol or glycerin is the unofficial name for it, and that's what people usually refer to this as. So glycerol, which is the same as glycerin, all right, just 3 carbons in a row, 1 OH off each of them. Oh, chemistry.